Notable insider is speculating that the Toronto Maple Leafs potential trade packages are not up to par with a potential trade partner, and fans are giving their thoughts. Will Treliving finally pull the trigger on a big move, or will he go after some depth? We'll get into all of that and more in this video. Welcome back to Leafs Digest. My name is Darius Domingues, and guys, we've noticed that about 80% of the viewers of this channel are not actually subscribed to the channel. And you know what? We get it. You're so entrenched in the content and all the videos that you just forget to subscribe. We get it. We get it. But you know what? Do yourself a favor and hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything Toronto Maple Leafs. And you're going to want to, because the trade deadline is right around the corner, and it looks like this team might be going for it. And we're going to get into that in this video. But without further ado, we've talked for weeks about Noah Hanifin and, Christopher Tanev, who's been on the trade block, apparently all season, and it looks like the Leafs have been trying to acquire him all season, and it looks like those plans might be falling through. But you know what? There might be some other things the Leafs can do, so we'll take a look at it in this video. But Elliotte Friedman came out and started throwing some bombs. It was the Elliotte Friedman bomb. All right, he is throwing stuff around, and we're going to get into it here. First of all, on the Noah Hanifin front, this is from the Mug NHL. The Toronto Maple Leafs reportedly made an offer for Noah Hanifin, which was rejected by the Calgary Flames, per Elliotte Friedman. Friedman also mentions that any Canadian team pushing for Hanifin likely won't be able to re-sign him, as Hanifin is interested in a long-term deal in the United States. And that's why we've seen those rumors of the Boston Bruins coming up recently, because he wouldn't mind playing in the States and for the Bruins. So it looks like he could end up being a Boston Bruin instead of a Leaf. Now, that doesn't mean that the Leafs still can't acquire him if they give up a little bit more. I don't know what the package will look like. But like we've talked about on the channel, there is a hunger for not acquiring UFAs this season, or at least if you're going to acquire a UFA, make sure you can sign him. And if that's not the case with Hanifin, I do not want him on the Toronto Maple Leafs. That is just my opinion. Let me know what you think in the comments, but I would not want another UFA or a whole situation like Noah Hanifin, all these guys that they acquired last year, Ryan O'Reilly, Luke Shen walking away. We do not want another situation like that, especially if you're a Leafs fan. And, Noah Hanifin, I've been vocal. He's a great player. I think he'd look great on the Leafs, but again, he's another left-hand shot, and if he doesn't want to resign, don't think he fits in. But from Pierre LeBrun on Overdrive, in terms of Chris Tanev, the kind of conversations and offers that the Flames have had, I was told today by someone that the Leafs probably wouldn't rank top 3 on that list right now. Now, we've heard some interesting things about Chris Tanev all season, that different teams want him. And, Ottawa's been in that mix. I'm starting to think, and I'm just speculating, I'm wondering if this is maybe, Calgary putting this stuff out there into the media to try and, up the price of their player. Because all we've heard all year is that only Vancouver, Toronto, and Ottawa, which again, Ottawa doesn't really make sense to acquire him, especially at the trade deadline. They're not going to the playoffs, and he's a UFA anyway. If they want him, sign him in the offseason. But again, it looks like maybe only 2 teams want him. I have heard a little bit of Dallas the last few days, but in terms of like a bidding war and the Leafs being far away, I'm not sure that's the case. Maybe they are. Maybe they have gotten other offers, but to say that the Leafs probably wouldn't rank top 3, I feel like that might be a tactic to get a little bit more out of the Leafs. But we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. I do think Chris Tanev may end up being a Toronto Maple Leaf when it's all said and done by the trade deadline, but we'll keep tabs on it. Obviously, Treliving loves the player, and I think he'd be a great fit. I think he would be open to re-signing in Toronto, which is a huge thing, which we've talked about. Right-handed shot, he would help the Leafs. I think he could fit right up there pairing with Morgan Rielly, and we'll get into some pairings in just a little bit as well, but the Leafs have been playing pretty well. So if you pair him with, Morgan Rielly, get Morgan Rielly another right shot defenseman, it would be fantastic going into the playoffs. But again, on the Noah Hanifin front, since, we'll stay with the Calgary Flames a little bit, from Elliotte Friedman on 32 Thoughts, Toronto has made a pitch for Hanifin, like we just said, no extension talks. So it doesn't look like it's going to happen. He does want a long-term deal. Toronto made a pitch, would like to know the possibility of signing him, but it looks like he wants long-term in the U.S. So teams are still looking to see where he fits in their plans around the league. So we'll keep tabs on it, but starting to look like Hanifin will not be an option for the Toronto Maple Leafs, but lots of options still available. So we'll take a look at that as well. And I mean, in terms of what the fan base thinks and a pulse on the fan base, they are slowly climbing up the standings with this 6-game winning streak. And it's not out of the question, like Nick says here, they 100% need to be buyers at the deadline. And I tend to agree with this now. I was not agreeing with this maybe a month or two ago, but they are playing very well. And this week that they've just had, it's hard to deny. I feel like the Riley thing has kind of shot something into the group. It seems like they're playing for the crest, they're playing for each other, and they're kind of willing to die for each other, like these old Leafs teams that we love so much and hold in our hearts so much that even though they lost, we just love the players and the way they played, right? So it's starting to look a little bit like that, which is very fun. And if they're playing like that and the attitude is right, which it didn't look like that was the case a little bit earlier this season, then maybe you do acquire somebody, a couple big names, or just go for it. Whatever that looks like, go for it at the deadline instead of standing pat and not doing anything. But anyway, Elliot Friedman says that the Leafs' recent winning streak and Matthews' play has, kind of sparked it for Tree Living to kind of go for it and be a buyer at the deadline. He says that a month or two ago, Toronto debated not going for it, and we kind of covered that on the channel as well. Toronto doing whatever they can to get a right shot defenseman, which I think is the move. But again, we've heard a lot of talk about this week about trading Easton Cowan and these draft picks. In my eyes, I mean, you can trade a first-round pick, but Easton Cowan, the way he's playing, the way he's turned out, I wouldn't touch him. I wouldn't trade him away. I think he's way too good. So, draft picks, they could end up being good, but you don't know what they are. You do know what you have in Easton Cowan in the system, so I'm not sure I would, want to part with Easton Cowan. Even if it was one of the better right shot defensemen, if they're older, you could run into problems with that. But again, this year's UFA class and, those available at the trade deadline, it's not the strongest class. We've seen better years. So it's going to be, it's going to be interesting to keep an eye on for sure. It's going to be very interesting down the stretch because the trade deadline is March 8th. It's just a couple weeks away, right? So it's coming up quickly. And obviously I would like to see the Leafs make a move and a big move a little bit before the deadline, so there's more time to gel, but we'll just have to see how things shake out because I feel like a lot of teams are holding off to get the most possible for their players this year, and it looks like that's going to be the case with at least Tanev, so that'll be interesting. But anyway, one interesting pairing I saw here, because the Leafs defense has been playing great, and I mean, in the absence of Riley, the Liljegren and Brody pairing with the left-right combo has been fantastic. Take Brody off the right side and everything's fixed. It's funny how that works, but imagine if they were to go out and acquire somebody like Adam Larsson from the Seattle Kraken. He's a right shot defenseman. He's not exactly, the best defensive defenseman, but you pair him with a guy like Riley as a first pairing, that's not bad. Then you have a nice shutdown pairing in McCabe and Benoit, who have been fantastic this year, and we've talked about it. And then Brody Liljegren have been fantastic the last, 6 games or so since the Riley suspension. So maybe you could leave it at that, and that might be good enough if you get good goaltending. That would be interesting to keep an eye on too. Maybe they only need one guy, and maybe it doesn't have to be a huge fish. I have been vocal about, going out and getting a huge player, making a big splash, but I'm not sure if that's even what they have to do with the way they're playing. Sometimes you don't have to go all in at the trade deadline. You just need your team to be, to be hot going into the playoffs. And we saw it with Florida last year. So hopefully we can see that with the Leafs this year. But you know what? Things are good with the Toronto Maple Leafs. That's great. And I mean, going into the trade deadline, it's good to be excited now because it didn't look like they were going to do much just a couple weeks ago. And it looks like they might be going for it now. So that's going to be exciting to keep our eye on. And you know what? Nick and I will have it all here covered on Leafs Digest. And we'll see you for another video tomorrow.